Photography has firmly become a part of our lives. Now we can capture any moment of our lives with a smartphone camera. In most cases, these photos are soon forgotten, and we rarely return to view them. But sometimes, only thanks to the camera, we can capture the most unpredictable events. In this video, you will see a selection of amazing photos and the stories behind their creation. Enjoy watching. This photograph was taken in 1998 during the STS-88 mission of the Endeavour shuttle. It captures a mysterious space object. Conspiracy theorists believe this is an artificial satellite of Earth called the Black Knight. According to legend, the Black Knight has been near our planet for 13,000 years, sent by aliens to monitor our planet. Stories of alien spacecraft in Earth's orbit began in the late 19th century after the famous inventor Nikola Tesla recorded a signal from space during experiments in Colorado Springs. Tesla always believed that there was life on other planets, and that extraterrestrial races wanted to contact humans, so he assumed the signal came from an alien probe. Surprisingly, Tesla was not the only scientist to record such a signal. This is why the legend of the Black Knight artificial alien satellite arose. After the photo of this strange dark object appeared, conspiracy theorists had no more doubts that the alien satellite indeed existed. However, the space agency stated that the object in the photo was a thermal blanket that was supposed to be used in the process of attaching the American module to the Russian module on the ISS. Residents of Hook Island, located in Australia, often tell tourists about an unusual sea monster that sometimes appears off the coast. According to descriptions, the creature is about 30 meters long and has a rather unusual body shape, resembling a tadpole. The monster was first spotted by Robert Le Serec and his family in 1964. According to him, the creature was moving toward their boat with its mouth open, as if it was about to attack. Robert managed to grab a camera and photograph the sea creature. The photograph shows that the monster resembles a snake, and its body is black. But nothing more can be understood from this image. Naturally, this photograph sparked a lot of debate. Some people believe it is staged. Perhaps Robert placed something under the water and then captured it with his camera. On the other hand, the man might have actually encountered some deep-sea animal that scientists are still unaware of. Unfortunately, the quality of this photo does not allow for a definitive answer as to what is actually depicted. During World War II, the best military engineers in the United States were tasked with improving the accuracy of bombs and rockets. However, one of the most surprising projects was proposed not by an engineer, but by a doctor of psychology named Burrhus Frederick Skinner. At that time, Skinner was fascinated by studying the behavioral reactions of birds, particularly pigeons. In his research, he discovered that pigeons have excellent visual memory and spatial orientation. These characteristics led Skinner to the idea of using pigeons to guide bombs. To realize this idea, it was necessary to teach the birds to recognize photographs and respond to images in a specific way. All this sounded too extraordinary, so when Skinner told the military about his project, they did not even listen to him. However, General Mills, a food production company, became interested. This led to serious work on Project Pigeon. First, Skinner spent a long time training the birds to peck accurately at the necessary spot, and then he developed pilot cabins for the pigeons, which were equipped with 3 screens hidden inside the nose cone at the front of the rocket. Skinner's idea was to place special sensors on the birds' heads. As soon as the pigeons saw the target, they would start pecking at the glass in that direction. These sensors were supposed to transmit the data to the onboard computer, which would then direct the warhead with incredible accuracy. Amazingly, Skinner managed to implement this idea quite well, and the military liked it. However, the project was eventually abandoned. Egyptomania began to emerge in Europe as early as the 18th century. But after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the fascination with ancient Egypt reached a new level. Tomb raiders started selling everything they could find. These included various artifacts and even mummies. Amazingly, there were enough people willing to buy ancient human remains So the black market for various Egyptian antiquities began to flourish in some parts of the world. Mummies began to adorn the homes of wealthy people and were used as decorations at events. But the most horrifying aspect was that pharmacies began to offer a medicinal remedy made from ground-up mummies. It was believed to help treat many illnesses and, in addition, to imbue the consumer with the energy and strength of the pharaohs. People believed this and purchased the miraculous powder until scientists explained that it had no beneficial properties whatsoever. Over time, Egyptomania lost its popularity. However, by then, many tombs had already been plundered, resulting in the loss of many valuable artifacts that archaeologists could no longer study. This photograph can be called the most unique in the world. It was taken in 1903. The author of the photo is unknown, but he was certainly a master of his craft, considering that he managed to fit the Hessdalen regiment, consisting of 1,250 people, onto a 110 by 60 centimeter negative. And that's simply fantastic. This photograph was taken to mark the retirement of the regiment's commander. The level of detail is astonishing. If you zoom in on a digitized copy of the photograph, you can see the faces of everyone captured in it. Shortly after the photograph was taken, it ended up in the collection of photographer Yevsey Bialy, who was passionate about early 20th century photographs. In the 1950s, this unique photo, along with other items from Bialy's collection, became the foundation for the Museum of the History of Photography. In 1993, the negative was transferred to the Union of Photographers of Russia, where it was received by photographer Svetlana Pozharskaya. Pozharskaya published this photo in her book, Photomaster, and after that, its scanned copy appeared on the internet, bringing the photo incredible popularity. And it's no wonder. Looking at the photograph of these unusual shoes, it's hard to guess why people came up with such an idea. And no, it was not a new fashion trend. These boots had a very different purpose. In 1920, the United States enacted Prohibition, which banned the production, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages. Naturally, alcohol producers did not want to lose their business and devised various ways to circumvent the ban. Abandoned premises in sparsely populated parts of cities were chosen for alcohol production. However, the police were monitoring compliance with the law and tracking down illegal operations. To remain unnoticed, someone in the alcohol production business came up with what seemed to be a brilliant plan. Illegal alcohol production sites were often discovered by the tracks left on the ground. Since all of them were located in areas with few people, a large number of shoe prints attracted the attention of the police. To avoid leaving tracks on the ground, it was decided to attach cow hooves to the soles of the shoes. Thus, instead of shoe prints, hoof prints were left on the ground. For a while, this idea worked, but eventually, the police figured it out and arrested the creative inventors. The photograph you see on your screen gained incredible popularity after it was published online. Many of you might have seen this picture on the internet, but few know its story. In this photograph, taken by photographer Jeff Widener in 1989, a man in a white shirt is seen standing in front of a column of tanks, holding two bags. This young man came to symbolize freedom and democracy in China. The event was captured on the last day of the Tiananmen Square protests, which lasted from April 15th to June 4th, 1989. The protesters, mainly students, were demonstrating against economic and political reforms. The authorities decided to take control of the situation and sent a large number of soldiers and military equipment to the square. The hero of this photograph single-handedly stood in the square against the column of tanks, attempting to stop the brutal suppression of the protests and protect the rights of the demonstrators. However, he was unsuccessful as he was arrested, and the tanks continued their advance. The exact number of people killed that day remains unknown, but according to some reports, around 1,000 people were killed. This photograph has become the subject of debates and various mystical stories. It was taken in 1950 in Texas. The picture shows the Cooper family, who had recently acquired a new home. The Coopers decided to celebrate this event with a festive dinner and capture it on camera. When the head of the family developed the photo, he was shocked. On the left side of the picture, he discovered a body hanging from the ceiling. Some people suggested that the Coopers had accidentally captured a ghost inhabiting their new home. Along with this, various legends emerged detailing the death of a person who lived in that house. But of course, all these were just fabrications. According to the Cooper couple, they did not feel the presence of any mystical entity during the dinner, so they were very surprised to see it in the photo. The unusual snapshot also caught the interest of professional photographers. They determined that the photograph was genuine, but what everyone thought was a ghost was actually not. The photographers explained that the head of the Cooper family made a mistake by using the same frame of film twice. The first time he photographed the family, and the second time he turned the camera upside down and captured a dancing guest. The two images overlapped, creating this effect. In November 1970, the carcass of a 14-meter whale weighing over 800 kilograms was washed ashore on the beach in the city of Florence, Oregon. This event caused many problems, primarily because the decomposition process of such a huge carcass would take a very long time. During this time, the stench of the corpse would spread for several kilometers. It is believed that no smell in nature is more unpleasant than that of a dead whale. Of course, the carcass needed to be removed. But how? This task fell to the State Highway Department. The department's leaders remembered that large boulders that had fallen onto the road from mountains were typically dealt with using explosives, so it was decided to handle the whale carcass in the same way. Without making any calculations, a highway inspector named George Thornton decided that 500 kilograms of dynamite would be sufficient. The process of destroying the whale carcass was scheduled for November 12th. Even the press attended this event. The dynamite was positioned in such a way that the pieces of the exploded carcass would fall into the sea, but something went wrong. When the deafening explosion occurred, many large pieces of the whale's corpse flew up and then began to fall on houses and parking lots far from the beach. Moreover, only a small part of the carcass exploded. The rest still had to be removed by the department's workers. Since then, in similar cases, whale carcasses are either buried in the sand or burned. From the 9th to the 10th century, the Catholic Church experienced tough times. It sounds strange, but during that time, there was indeed turmoil surrounding the papal throne. Consider the fact that in less than 100 years, 24 people occupied the position of pope. Each of them fought for power, choosing methods that completely contradicted the principles of the Church. In 891, Formosus became pope. He managed to hold on to his position for 5 years, which was quite long for that time. After Formosus's death, his successor, Pope Stephen VI, posthumously slandered him and ordered a trial. The fact that the man had already been buried did not stop the pontiff, and he conducted a trial, which became known in history as the Cadaver Synod. In January 897, Formosus's body was exhumed and brought to the Basilica of St. John Lateran. During the trial, the corpse of the former pope was tied to a chair to keep it in a seated position. After hearing all the accusations brought against him by Stephen VI, Formosus was found guilty of everything. As a punishment, 3 fingers with which he gave blessings were cut off. He was stripped of his papal garments, dragged through the streets of Rome, and buried in a common grave. Later, the body was again exhumed by grave robbers looking for profit and thrown into the Tiber River, from where it was eventually recovered. All of this sounds very gruesome, and it's hard to believe that it all happened in the Vatican. The woman captured in this photograph remains one of the most mysterious figures of the second half of the 20th century. And this is because no one has managed to find out who she is. But what is interesting about this woman who looks quite ordinary? The fact is that during the assassination of the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, which took place on November 22, 1963, she was filming the event with her camera. When the shot rang out, most of the people gathered on Elm Street to see the president began to flee in panic, but the mysterious woman did not rush to leave and continued to film the incident with her camera. When the police were looking for witnesses to the assassination, they reviewed photos taken by the press and noticed that in many of them, there was a woman in a headscarf and sunglasses, resembling the appearance of Russian grandmothers. However, her face was covered by the camera, making her very difficult to identify. Despite the police making every effort to find the Babushka Lady, they were unable to identify her. If the woman had been found, investigators would have had footage taken with her camera, which might have captured Kennedy's assassin. In 1970, a young woman named Beverly Oliver approached the police. She claimed to be the long-sought woman. According to her, on that day she was filming the president with a Yashica Super 8 camera, but since FBI agents took her camera, the recording was lost. However, the police did not believe her because this model of camera was not produced in 1963. Furthermore, at the time of the president's assassination, the Babushka Lady was about 40 years old, while Beverly was only 24 years old in 1970. Unfortunately, the identity of the Babushka Lady remains a mystery, as does the reason why she was filming the president's assassination. You might be surprised, but during World War II, fake military equipment was used. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops of the U.S. Army, also known as the Ghost Army, had an entire arsenal of inflatable military equipment, including tanks and airplanes. The unit consisted of artists, actors, architects, and musicians. The main task of these people was to confuse the enemy with the number of troops. In total, the unit consisted of more than 1,100 people. The Ghost Army put on real shows simulating a large army. Everything was thought out to the smallest detail. Special loudspeakers were set up in the forest, emitting the sounds of bombers and tanks. The noise was so loud and believable that, upon hearing it and seeing the huge amount of military equipment, the enemies were forced to retreat. At that moment, a real armed army was already waiting for them on the other side. Perhaps the most successful battle of the Ghost Army occurred during Operation Viersen. Just imagine how shocked the enemies were when at least 600 tanks appeared before them out of nowhere. Of course, the opponents did not know that it was all just props, and ended up wasting a lot of ammunition destroying the inflatable military equipment. Looking at this photograph, it's hard to believe that it is a baby stroller. It looks very bulky and entirely unattractive. However, during World War II, people were very afraid of gas attacks, which were used by many countries during World War I, and preserving the health of their offspring was more important than aesthetic beauty. In 1938, the company F.W. Mills from Kent, England, developed an amazing baby stroller that would help save a child in the event of a gas attack. Inside the stroller, there was a small crib for the baby, which could be closed with a strong lid if necessary. The child would breathe through a special gas filter attached to the top. On the other side of the stroller, there was also a special rubber bulb for expelling stale air. This remarkable invention was in quite good demand among those who could afford it. However, fortunately, gas attacks did not occur, so the effectiveness of this stroller was never tested. The author of this photograph is an English firefighter, photographer, and local historian named Jim Templeton. In 1964, he decided to take pictures of his 5-year-old daughter in the picturesque area of Berg Marsh. When he developed the photos, he was shocked by what he saw. Besides his daughter, the photos featured a figure resembling an astronaut. It is worth noting that the first manned spaceflight took place on April 12, 1961, 3 years before this photograph was taken. One might think that Jim was influenced by sensational events in space exploration and somehow edited his photo, but he claimed that the photograph was genuine and that there was no one else in the area at the time except for him, his wife, and their daughter. Naturally, this photograph caused quite a stir, particularly among ufologists who were convinced that Jim had captured a real alien. The photograph was taken with one of the latest models of Kodak cameras. It quickly spread across print media, and Kodak specialists decided to verify its authenticity. The photo passed the verification, meaning no editing was involved. But then who was accidentally captured in this shot? Ufologists believe it was an alien, while photographers think that Jim unintentionally photographed his wife, not noticing her due to the limited view of the viewfinder, and the color of her clothing was distorted because the frame was overexposed. Although, let's be honest, this figure does not resemble a woman who could accidentally appear in the shot. In 2000, a woman who preferred to remain anonymous sent this photo to the sheriff of Sarasota, Florida. According to the author of the photograph, it captures a cryptid, the skunk ape. The skunk ape is a mythical creature that inhabits the forests of Florida. The first reports of this monster appeared in the 1960s. According to eyewitnesses, the cryptid resembles an ape, but its height exceeds 2 meters. In fact, the description of this monster is very similar to that of a yeti, but the skunk ape has one specific feature, a terrible smell that can be compared to the smell of rotten eggs and manure. It is precisely because of this that the monster was named the skunk ape. In reality, there have been many reports of encounters with this cryptid. Moreover, it has been spotted not only in the forest but also on people's properties and even in the water. All people consistently described a huge ape with a terrible smell emanating from its body. However, this photograph became the only one capturing the skunk ape. The snapshot sparked a lot of debates. Therefore, experts checked this photo for authenticity several times, and all these checks showed that the photo was genuine. Nonetheless, experts concluded that the photograph depicts not a cryptid, but an ordinary orangutan. Although, let's be honest, this animal doesn't look like an orangutan at all. The American writer Ernest Hemingway was known not only for his literary works but also for his immense love for cats. There are many photos of the writer with his cats, whose descendants still live near the house where he once resided. This house is located on Key West Island, Florida. Hemingway's love for cats began in 1935 when Captain Stanley Dexter gave him a white kitten named Snowball. This kitten had one unusual feature. It had 6 toes on its paws instead of the usual 5. This genetic mutation, known as polydactyly or hexadactyly, did not affect the cat's life. Snowball grew up healthy and had several litters of kittens, passing on this trait to her offspring. Her descendants continue to live in the writer's house to this day. Interestingly, besides Snowball's descendants, the special attitude toward cats that Hemingway practiced has also been preserved on Key West Island. These animals are allowed to roam freely. In many places on the island, there are bowls of food and water so the cats can quench their thirst or hunger. Furthermore, if a cat dies, it is buried in a special cat cemetery. This photograph shocked American residents when it appeared in many newspapers in August 1948. The picture showed a woman with 4 children, and next to this family was a sign that read, "4 children for sale." You might think this is just a staged photo, because if it were real, a woman selling her children right on the street would have been arrested long ago. But unfortunately, it's all true. The woman you see in the photo was named Lucille. At the time this photo was taken, she was pregnant with her 5th child. After the war, many people, including her husband, lost their jobs. They had nothing to feed their children, so they decided to find them a new family and make some money. Amazingly, Lucille and her husband managed to find buyers. A girl named Anna and her younger brother Milton were taken by a farming family, John and Ruth Zoteman. However, the farmers acquired the children for hard labor, not for care. Additionally, they often resorted to violence and beat the brother and sister. The fate of Lucille's other 2 daughters is unknown, but rumors say their lives were as hard as Anna and Milton's. Only Lucille's 5th child, a boy named Bedford, was luckier than the others. When he was 9 months old, he was adopted by the McDaniel family. The McDaniels said that when they took the boy from Lucille, he was emaciated, dirty, and covered in bedbug bites. Despite this, they managed to raise and nurture him. Now Bedford lives in Washington, and his life has turned out well, unlike his brother and sisters. In these frames, you can see one of Norway's most mysterious anomalies, known as the Hessdalen lights. The residents of Hessdalen Valley first encountered this phenomenon in 1981. People noticed strange lights of various colors: white, yellow, red, blue, and green. Some of the lights hovered in the sky, while others moved at high speeds and disappeared. Amazingly, this phenomenon occurred not only at night, but also during the day. Naturally, this remarkable phenomenon attracted the interest of scientists. In 1983, several expeditions of Norwegian and Swiss scientists were sent to the valley. However, even the best experts could not determine the nature of the lights. Still, the scientists managed to observe several features of this phenomenon. With the help of special equipment, it was found that during the appearance of these lights, electromagnetic radiation increased in the valley, and sometimes this phenomenon was accompanied by a slight increase in radiation levels. Additionally, the lights most often appeared during magnetic storms, from 4 in the afternoon to 2 in the morning, and during the winter period. This information allowed scientists to prove that the Hessdalen lights are not related to aliens and are a natural phenomenon. Most likely, the reasons for this phenomenon are the characteristics of the valley itself. The Hesja River flows through Hessdalen, with its left bank consisting of copper-containing rocks, while the right bank contains zinc. It is quite possible that all these elements, including sulfuric acid from the river itself, may provoke this effect. In 1972, during excavations at Tepe Hasanlu in northwestern Iran, archaeologists discovered very interesting remains over 2,800 years old. 2 human skeletons lay in a common grave, with one skeleton holding its hand on the face of the other, creating the impression that these 2 people were trying to kiss each other before dying. Archaeologists were amazed by such an unusual find, so they captured it on camera. The resulting photograph was titled, "The 800-Year-Old Kiss." Historians believe that at the time these people died, this settlement was subjected to a military attack. The skeletons were found in a plaster grain storage bunker. They were likely hiding from soldiers, but the settlement was set on fire, and these people suffocated from the smoke during the fire. Despite the romantic nature of these remains, research showed that they belong not to a woman and a man, but to 2 men. Of course, this news puzzled scientists. What relationship tied these 2 men together remains a mystery. They could have been brothers or friends, but at the same time, they might have had entirely different relationships. This photograph looks very eerie as it shows a mountain of skulls belonging to bison. To appreciate its scale, just look at how small the person standing next to it appears. Now imagine how many animals had to be killed to create such a pile of skulls. This photo was taken back in the 19th century, making it a unique testament to how cruel people can be. In the 1830s, American hunters were engaged in the mass slaughter of bison. This was not done for meat or hides. The killing of these animals was a strategic decision. The Native Americans had been hunting bison throughout their history. Since bison were one of the most common animals in the area, the Native Americans hunted them. However, they never killed animals without necessity, so this hunting did not affect the bison population. Everything changed when the U.S. authorities decided to exterminate the bison to deprive the Native Americans of their food source. Medals were even awarded for the mass killings of these animals, and over time such slaughter became a form of entertainment. Over the 40 years during which bison hunting took place, American hunters managed to kill at least 75 million of these animals. This sounds simply horrific, doesn't it? These unique frames were taken in California. They show strange, unidentified creatures that resemble ghosts, but their shape clearly resembles pants. Yes, this sounds really strange, but if you look closely at these monsters, you will indeed notice the resemblance. The author of this video heard strange noises near his home. One day he decided to check what or who was the source of these noises. When the man saw these mystical creatures, he figured no one would believe him, so he installed several cameras in the area. He was lucky, and the unusual creatures were caught on camera. Thanks to this video, we can see how unique these monsters are. I think most of you are seeing something like this for the first time. These creatures have no arms, heads, or torsos, but they do have legs. However, unlike the legs or paws of earthly creatures, they do not taper but instead widen towards the bottom, resembling wide pants in shape. Amazingly, The author of the video was not the only person to see these monsters. There are several other known encounters with them. However, their true nature remains a mystery. And that's all from me. If you liked this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. Your engagement is the best reward for me. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.